The Scream by Edvard Munch. You've likely seen this painting thousands of times before, but there's one thing almost everyone gets wrong. The figure is not screaming. Look at the hands. They're cupped over their ears, as if blocking out a sound. Their mouth is open, but in shock rather than a scream, like their body hasn't caught up with what's going on around them. The scream is coming from somewhere else. The sky, the fjord, from everything. And the small, bold, boneless creature on the walkway that we think is screaming is actually the one unlucky person who can hear the scream. Once you see that, the painting rearranges itself. It stops being a cartoon about anxiety and becomes something stranger. A picture of a moment when the world stopped making sense. And this opens up a much bigger question. Most paintings of human suffering are ignored, but this one has become iconic. Why? There's a hidden sentence written in pencil on this painting. Nobody could explain it for over a century, but in 2021 the mystery was solved. And when you find out who wrote it, the entire painting changes. We'll come back to that hidden sentence later. In January 1892, Edvard Munch wrote in his notebook about something that happened to him in Norway. He was walking with two friends. The sun was setting, and suddenly the sky turned a deep red. He stopped, leaned against the fence, and felt exhausted. Above the fjord's water and the city's skyline, there was blood and tongues of fire in the clouds. His friends walked on as if nothing was wrong. Munch stood there trembling as he felt an infinite scream pass through nature. The road where this happened is real. You can walk along it in Ekeberg, on the eastern side of Oslo, Norway. I've been there. These are my photos. It's quite beautiful in summer. And that's the point. It's a normal place where normal life happens. But Munch experienced something abnormal that day that others didn't. Rereading his diary entry, the exhaustion, the sudden dread, the world collapsing as your friends carry on, all hint at a possible panic attack. But Munch wouldn't have known that. To him, something strange, something unsettling, something that filled him with terror occurred that day. And he spent the rest of his life trying to paint what happened to him. Munch wasn't a normal artist. His mother died of tuberculosis when he was 5. His older sister, Sophie, who he was close with, died of the same disease when he was 14. When Munch started painting, it wasn't landscapes or flowers. It was images of Sophie dying. He painted her final moment before death 6 times over the course of his life. By the early 1890s, this had become a project for him named The Frieze of Life. A cycle of paintings about love, anxiety, illness and death, meant to be hung together and read like a sequence. The Scream was made for that cycle. It was never intended to be a standalone masterpiece. It was always one piece in a symphony of art about being alive and finding it unbearable. But let's go back to the painting. Part of what caused Munch's terror that day was the sky turning red. But did that actually happen? And if so, what caused it? Art historians, scientists, and meteorologists have been arguing about this for years, and there are 3 main theories. The first is that it was caused by a volcano. In 1883, Krakatoa erupted in Indonesia. It was one of the most violent eruptions in recorded history, and it threw so much volcanic material into the upper atmosphere that it changed the color of the sky and sunsets around the world for months. In 2004, a team of astronomers published the argument that Munch, as a teenager in Norway, would have seen these volcanic skies, and the clouds we see in the Scream could be a memory of them. For the second theory, in 2017, 3 Norwegian meteorologists proposed something else. Nacreous cloud, also known as mother of pearl clouds. They only form 20 to 30 kilometers up high, only in winter, and their particles happen to be almost exactly the size of a wavelength of visible light. The same kind of light that makes a soap bubble or a petrol puddle iridescent. They're banded, rippled, and crucially, because of this iridescent effect, they glow after the sun has gone down. Which matters because that's exactly what Munch describes. The sky turning red after the sunset. In 2018, a second team ran a colour analysis comparing the painting against photographs of both phenomena, and the nacreous clouds came out on top. The giveaway was the waviness. Volcanic sunsets wash colour evenly across the sky, while the sky in Munch's painting ripples in distinct bands, which is the way nacreous clouds form. The third theory is that it doesn't matter. Some art historians reasonably point out that Munch wasn't a documentary painter. He wasn't standing there with a colour chart trying to perfectly capture the clouds. He was painting a feeling. In his diary, he says he painted the clouds as actual blood, and that the colour shrieked. All three theories seem possible, and I don't think we have to choose. Munch used the scream to capture a feeling, and the strange sky he saw on that day somehow turned his mind to terror. And he painted that moment for us to see in the scream. What's fascinating is that the scream wasn't the only time he painted that sky. Look at this painting. It's titled Sick Mood at Sunset, Despair. Munch painted it in 1892, a year before the scream. Same perspective, same hill, same railing, same red sky, same two figures walking away in the background, same artist. It's a good painting, but it's not iconic. It's not instantly recognisable like the scream. Why is that? We talked about the clouds, but the clouds are similar in both, so that can't be it. When you put the two side by side, despite all the similarities, there's a stark difference. In Despair, the central character is a specific man, wearing a hat and coat, back turned to us, head bowed. He's a character in the scene and we watch him from behind. But in the Scream, Munch turns this character around to face us. He sands off every identifying feature. No hair, no hat, no clear gender, no age or class. Is it a coat or a dress? Is it a face or just a skull? The National Museum of Norway, which owns this version, calls it a visual enigma. He didn't paint a man in despair, he deleted the man and just painted the despair. The style in the Scream is more fluid. Everything seems to merge together, collapsing in on itself as the character's mind crumbles. The only thing that seems solid is the walkway, driving a hard diagonal line, drawing our eye from the suffering creature to the two friends casually walking in the background. And that contrast between the two friends in the background and the figure is the loneliest detail. Whatever horror is happening, it's happening to just one person. But remember, we still need to learn about the mysterious hidden sentence written in the corner of this painting. In pencil, written in Norwegian in tiny letters across the red clouds, the words, which translate to "could only have been painted by a madman," can be seen. A Danish art critic spotted it in 1904 and assumed it was graffiti, some outraged visitor who didn't approve of the painting, and for over a century almost everyone agreed because it fit the narrative. When the Scream was first shown in Norway in 1895, it went badly. Not just bad reviews, but at a public debate with Munch sitting in the room, a medical student stood up and questioned whether he was sane for painting it, which was a sharp, painful allegation for Munch. His father was a doctor of puritanical religiosity. He told his children that any sin damned them permanently, and this loomed over their entire family. Munch's younger sister Laura had a severe mental illness and was, at the time of this painting, a patient in an asylum. And fascinatingly, that asylum was located at the foot of the hill where Munch had his walk of terror in Ekeberg that inspired this painting. He later described illness, insanity and death as the black angels standing over his cradle. So the accusation of insanity wasn't abstract. It was the thing he feared would come true. But that still doesn't answer who wrote that mysterious sentence in pencil on the painting. But in 2021, we discovered something that flipped the narrative of the hidden sentence on its head. Conservators at the National Museum put the painting under an infrared camera, picking up the traces of carbon from the original pencil. They compared the letter forms on the painting to Munch's diaries and letters, and they concluded the handwriting matched. Munch wrote it there himself sometime after the painting was finished. Could only have been painted by a madman. A man publicly accused of insanity because of his art, picking up a pencil and writing the accusation directly into the red sky of his own painting. You could read it as a wound, a man embracing his insanity, confessing to the world what many already suspected. Or it could be sarcasm, a joke, playing with the ideas and labels that others burdened him with. We'll never know the truth, but what we do know is that the Munch chose to write it himself. So we've explained the painting and the hidden sentence, but we haven't explained why it's so popular. Munch made this image more than once. 2 paintings, 2 pastel versions, and an 1895 a lithograph, which meant it could be printed. But here's the strange thing. Despite the scream now being so famous, for the first half of the 20th century, it was rarely reproduced, rarely studied, and rarely talked about. That all changed in 1973, when the first book-length study of the painting appeared. From then on, its status as a modern image of anxiety really took off. In the 80s, Andy Warhol silk-screened the image, stripping away much of its fine art aura and turning it into an object that could be mass-produced, which isn't actually that far off what Munch himself tried to do when he created the lithograph version almost 100 years before. Both of the painted versions were stolen in 1994 and 2004. Their theft and subsequent recovery added to the image's growing infamy. In 2012, one of the pastel versions sold at auction for just under $120 million. At the time, the highest price ever paid for a work of art at public auction. It became such an iconic image of anxiety and fear that the US Department of Energy seriously considered using a simplified version of the scream to warn future civilizations that might not speak our language that nuclear waste was stored here. Every other great painting of suffering gives you a specific person from a specific era with a specific life to look at, connect with, and feel sympathy for. But the scream doesn't do that. Munch gave us a strange, anonymous, boneless figure, a blank canvas of a human where only suffering is on display. By stripping so much back, Munch allows us to feel as the figure does, to channel their pain and know what it would be like to have the world stop making sense. There's a reason most of us just presumed the figure was screaming in this painting, and it's not that we're ignorant. It's that the image has become so popular, so ubiquitous, so common, that we stopped genuinely looking at it. Which makes you question what else we're missing, what else we're overlooking, what else we are failing to understand. Next time a piece of art is in front of you, look at it. You might be surprised at what you find. If you want to see more videos where I explain famous pieces of art, then subscribe. Thanks for watching.